Good evening, friends. Welcome to the JHS Excellencia series. Today we have a very interesting topic, digitalization of the procurement process and function. And we couldn't have had a better speaker and faculty than Mr. Suhrid Shah. I would say that he is a grandmaster and a legend on the subject of digitalization of supply chain management practices in India. Let me begin by introducing my old and dear friend, Mr. Suhrid Shah. Mr. Shah is the CEO of Mevin Vesta Technologies Private Limited. He is a seasoned entrepreneur with over 35 years of experience in manufacturing, marketing, and technology sectors. He possesses a deep understanding of business needs and user perspectives, leveraging technology to create adaptable solutions. I have seen Surit in my career uh, simplifying a very complex procurement process for multinational companies, covering the length and breadth of the supply chain management function. We have very critical timeline driven procurement activities where the board of directors demand right price, right product, right time, right quantity, right quality. So procurement is a starting point in any business value chain. And Surid and his team have done an exceptional job in digitalization of the procurement and supply chain function. He's created a very successful startup organization called Mevin Vista that focuses on e-procurement solutions. And throughout his career, Surid has collaborated with prestigious institutions like the Indian Institute of Science, delivering complex engineering and IT solutions. As an entrepreneur, he has achieved ISO 9002 certification for the marketing and sales processes. Uh, Years back, almost 3 decades back in the 1980s, showcasing his commitment to process orientation. Surit's diverse experiences in marketing, both as a buyer and seller, have inspired him to, touch the entire supply chain and procurement landscape. He has impacted quite a lot of multinational companies through his consulting advice and digitalization of the procurement function. Surid also takes keen interest in adventure sports. He's an enthusiast and he takes keen interest in new adventures and high adrenaline experiences. His leadership at Mevin Vesta Technologies has made a significant impact on the procurement landscape of leading companies, including multinational companies. So, without much of delay now, I will not stand between you and Surit, and I will invite Surit to commence the session. And Surit, just to give you a sense of the participants today, we have a large number of participants comprising of professionals from procurement function, uh, professionals who are auditors, professionals from finance function. Few of them are independent directors as well. So they would be keen to hear your views on this subject of unlocking value through digitalization of the supply chain management function. Over to you, Suri.
Thanks, Josefa. I think I much appreciate your kind words. Um, just to give you a little brief to the audience, uh, I've been into the procurement digitization space for more than now 2 decades and had the opportunity to interact with the highly proficient procurement professionals from mid-sized to large companies who have immensely contributed in our journey to reach the place where we are today. When I think Hussefa approached me about a couple of weeks back about talking about digitization of supply chain and what impact it can create in terms of business value. I felt it's a too large a topic, supply chain, and I thought of considering the time which we have, almost kind of an hour. I thought it would be most apt to look at a specific area, which is a very critical component of the supply chain function, which is procurement. And that's where we have been operating for more than 20 years. So probably I thought that I would be able to give the perspective which we have developed over the last 2 decades. in this domain. So, having said that, I would like to share a presentation which I would take you through. Um, is just wanted to know whether the screen is visible.
Yes, it
Is
is.
it is right? Yeah. So I think the topic, which is what today I would be talking for the next 45 minutes, is unlocking supply chain value through procurement digitization. And I think is most apt to look at what has happened in the supply chain function in the last 3 years between 2020 and 2023. There's some unprecedented thing, which is what this function has experienced. We ended up having in 2020 unexpected pandemic, COVID-19. Nobody had expected with the technology advent which we had, progress on the medicines which we had, that some kind of this kind of a catastrophe can struck the world and disrupt completely the supply chains. Followed by we were just recovering and we found Ukraine war, we found Gaza war, and we're seeing that disruptions continuing on an ongoing basis. So if you really look at these two functions, when we look at the kind of risk which are required to be mitigated and ensure the efficiency, considering such kind of extreme events, it requires different kind of an approach to meet these challenges. We look at the technological advance. Gen AI has been a game changer. I think we're going to see what we believe that in the next 2 to 3 years, a disruption like internet, or maybe more profound disruption than internet, it's going to impact our life in every area which we are working, be it personal or professional. The way functions are being going to be handled, leveraging this technology is going to be very, very different. We also seen that there is a significant change in the way consumers' preferences are changing. It's very dynamically changing, and that is where the whole supply chain or associated functions are required to respond effectively to meet those changing needs. Well, the world is, I think, going through a bit of a serious crisis considering the environment degradation which has happened over the last many years through profound industrialization. If you really look at it, that it is becoming now an essential component in managing the requirements to ensure that we have a high leverage on sustainability initiatives. Having said that, when we look at these challenges, so what's the impact, which is what is driven on the structural changes, which is what the supply chain is going to demand? So it's kind of a new economic era, which is going to be characterized by many a times a regionalized supply chain, huge dominance of AI. And when we are seeing this kind of a disruptive changes coming up, there is going to be a significant shortage on the talent pool, because I have not come across many leading institutes which talks about especially procurement, supply chain. Yes, at a broader sense, there are institutes which are talking about, but on procurement side, which is a very critical component of the supply chain, I think there is very limited number of institute which talks about it. And that's a science by itself. And it's the experience which teaches people about how to manage effectively, efficiently procurement. Now, when you look at this, I'm just quickly going to take you through the next slide. It's just a broad element of what is supply chain, just to contextualize. It's primarily the flow of goods and services to create the sellable object and to make sure that this sellable object is delivered effectively to the ultimate customer. So whatever are the processes which are required, whatever are the workflows which are required to manage creation of an object and delivery of that object to the customer. And the key element which if I identify are these five. Now, when we look at purchasing, we have to get the right quality of goods in time and at the right price, because this is what is going to determine the customer satisfaction. Your quality would be of the final product, and that's also dependent on the quality of the material which you procure. It has to be in the time in order to deliver the supply to the supplier in time, and it has to be cost effective to offer customer a competitive price. Without the planning and forecasting, this is not possible. Everything requires lead time, and you need to have a very efficient planning and forecasting to manage this entire function. Third part, which is logistics, which is a very important function because you need to bring goods to the place of manufacturing and you need to deliver these goods to the point which is the customer point. So there is a significant amount of logistics need which is there in order to ensure customer delivery in time. I think it's the fourth point, which is resource management. It's equally important because entire functions requires very competent resources to manage each point of the function. And to make these resources more efficient and effective, you require information workflow. Without the information, right kind of information and real-time communication, it is impossible to manage this function efficiently. And in short, if I have to put it up, that supply chain management actually determines satisfaction level of your customers and operating costs. That means it is one of the most critical component of your business. If you really look at it, the cost element, which is a cost element which contributes, especially in the case of manufacturing, why procurement has become the core. It kind of comprises of 45 to 85% of the spend of the revenue of manufacturing company, most of the manufacturing, I would say to a large extent. And considering that the impact on their bottom line, which is almost about 7 to 15% of the revenue, every percentage savings in the cost of procurement can bring about improvement in the bottom line by nearly 5 to 10%. Now just imagine that in order to improve otherwise your bottom line, the other two options are increase your market share, increase your top line, increase your manufacturing capacity. All of those situations you require to deal with a lot of uncertainties because market is not within your control. While procurement function is within your control, any improvement in the efficiency, which can be brought about at a fraction of the cost compared to the manufacturing capacity increase or the market share increase, which we are talking about, and you can still bring about a significant impact on the bottom line. So it's in context of this, it's important to look at that what are the factors which adversely impacts the procurement cost. Very important aspect, you need to have the right kind of information, commodity prices, market information, geopolitical events related information in order to take the right to decide the right procurement strategies in order to determine your buying strategies. You also require this information as well as assessment of what you are doing in order to do a most effective risk management. You run risk of suppliers, you run risk on related to specific suppliers, you run risk of geopolitical situation like we've been seeing. So how do you intend to manage this risk, which is also very, very important? Typically, in absence of this, I think you'll end up doing your maverick buying. Most of the companies which we dealing with, especially for the C categories of the procurement, what they are doing, most of the time it's a last minute purchase. There is no design of the strategy, which Such kind of procurement consists of almost 20 to 30% of the total spend. It's still a significant amount, and there is a huge opportunity for one to save in optimizing the cost of those spend. This is a very sensitive function. We've seen maximum kind of corruption cases in the procurement. There is a high amount of possibility of price rigging, aligning with certain suppliers, manipulating situation. There is a possibility here. So unless a proper accountability is established, this possibility is going to be very profound. Now you go through an entire sequence and you kind of create a contract. How effective is your contract management? If this is not efficiently managed, then all the advantage which you have created through signing of this contract, these are lost in execution. Similar way, you are constantly required to ensure competitive environment in order to have the best price discovery which is possible. Now, there are innovations which are happening all across the world, and unless and until you're able to expand your pool of suppliers selectively for the items where you have the affordability to have this extended pool, you'll not be able to have the right kind of price discovery. It's also very important to have standardization. Whatever you're doing, it has to have a right kind of SOP so that you're able to bring about improvement also effectively, as well as you're able to ensure compliance, which you desire to have it in the entire process. It's also very vital. What I see in the procurement, particularly the negotiation part, is off the line of any system most of the time. And that is where the transparency is lacking. You don't have the visibility which you desire to have it across end-to-end cycle of the procurement. Well, you run through huge number of transactions. How do you have the accountability established? I've been talking to a few of the audit companies when we started off our journey. And what we understood that most of the time they audit the orders. Orders is a decision. And who is justifying that decision is a document, which is what a buyer is producing. So buyer is likely to produce only those documents which he is confident of justifying. It's a big challenge unless you have the visibility of an end-to-end process of how a decision has been taken. And that process, you need to have the kind of filters in order to weed out the non-compliant decisions. In absence of a robust system, this accountability issue will be a very, very serious issues, and which leads to, I reflected, the price rigging and various other risks which are associated with it. I already talked about it's not incompetent human resources. I would say the kind of skills which are required, which skills are lacking. And there is a huge demand for a good procurement professional. And when I say good procurement professional, I would say ethically strong. And I would say that the person who understands the nitty-gritty of negotiation, who is information prone, who is leveraging data in his decisions very effectively. So he's understanding human psychology very well, because the human psychology is a very important component of the negotiations. So these are the factors broadly which impact your procurement cost. And let's look at how the CFO's function gets impacted adversely. Like, your cost increase is naturally going to hit your bottom line adversely. If you don't get material in time, is going to lead to loss of productivity and revenue. If you don't have cost effective purchase, your competitive position is going to be compromised. When you don't have sufficient margins, your cash flows gets issued. You have regularity issues like GST, MSME compliance. You need to make sure that all of these are most effectively met in order to see that you don't run into any kind of complex legal issues. There is no central repository of data. So if a buyer, critical buyer leaves, he takes away the knowledge. There is no central repository, which is what is available, where that knowledge can be leveraged by the newcomer who is walking in. And obviously, as I've reflected, audit issues are a very, very challenging issue in context of procurement function. So that's where the contemporary CFO, which I believe are looking at procurement transformation to drive cost saving and create value. How does that happen? Welcome to the future of procurement, and it's a digital transformation. Let me share with you what we believe, which are the six key building blocks for procurement digitization. The procurement digitization, we talked about agility. It needs to allow you, you shouldn't be investing time on transactional activity. Those activities need to get automated to a significant extent. You shouldn't be spending time on documentation. Those should be electronic document automatically being created. There has to be a high level of agility of reaching out to your supplier, exchanging information, exchanging communications. So that's where the most important component is agility. When you're looking at speed, it's also vital that you need to have the right insight, because now the time required to take decisions is going to get reduced to a significant extent. So without the right insight on the various parameters, it is impossible to arrive at the right decision. It will turn into more of a maverick buying. So it's a way, the system which you think of having need to provide the desired insight. Ethical, it needs to be ethical. Now, ethical is very individual. So you need to build up a culture which kind of grooms these values. At the same time, you need to establish accountability through the system so that is reinforced in terms of the transaction which is carried out. Now, with the advent of Gen AI, it will start predicting trends. It will start predicting negotiation behavior. It will start suggesting the right kind of decision based on the historical patterns. So it needs to have those elements imbibed in your digital landscape. It also has to be environmental conscious. So whatever are the social and environmental compliance has to be part of the system. And very important, last but not the least, it needs to be customer centric. It needs to connect various function, maybe your technology guys, your buyers, your suppliers, your stores people. Everybody needs to have a common ground to connect in order to respond very fast to any customer centric request which comes up where it requires movement at a different pace. These are very crucial elements in order to think about a procurement digitization. And I would get into more details that what key elements to consider when you're talking about procurement digitization. The first and the foremost is you should be very clear what objective you want to achieve. Unless you are clear, what is the measurable objective which you want to achieve? What are you expecting through digitization? Write it down. Make a list of things which you want to achieve in context of procurement function. And then look at the stakeholders that who can come in and support this initiative. You have to, when you are looking at the solution, you need to look at how effectively it's going to integrate with your legacy system, which are the touch points where you want your data, which is your to be there in your legacy system, so that there is a complete data integrity which is established between these two systems. What kind of analytics which you would like to see, which will give you insight? Very important aspect, that how easy it is to use, because here it is not only your buyers, your supplier community is also required to use it. If this adoption is not there, there is no benefit which is going to come up. So it has to be very, very simple system. It can't have any complexity. Maybe it is lacking in few functionality which should be kind of acceptable, but any kind of complexity which is a no-go situation to have in any system. Every industry, every organization, they always have the niche needs, which is their actually edge over the market. The system should allow the flexibility to build those customized niche. And that is where two aspects will get met. The adoption would improve because the users would be able to address their needs. And two, your organizational objective, which will be also more effectively addressed. A very important thing, people are used to doing things in certain manner. They're used to Excel files, and I think they could be putting in almost double or triple the efforts in going through all the documentation. But when it comes down to a minor learning curve, they have a huge resistance to change. So I think a very important thing which is there that what is if you're able to articulate the benefits associated with the for the users, then with that excitement, they would have a better tendency to adopt. And again, you require the hand holding, which is required to have the seamless change management laid out. The solution, because as you start using the system, your needs are going to be expanding. New technologies which are coming up. So the scalability of the solution is also very, very important. Since it's a web enabled solution now, most of the time you're having because you want your suppliers to access and you want to work remotely. Security is a very, very important aspect. So you need to be careful about and to evaluate the solution that from what security measures this is being taken, how robust it is to handle various kind of security threats. Whatever are compliance requirement from your industry perspective has to be part of the solutioning. And supplier integration, how much is the acceptance of the solution with the supplier? And as I said, the change management is also a change management for supplier. So what's the motivation which is there for supplier to adapt to a solution? So you need to communicate, articulate it that effectively that why, whether the supplier will have a better chance of doing getting business from your organization? Would it have better visibility to the transactions what they are doing? Would their payment are expected to be processed faster because there is a digital landscape which is providing a payment processing? And on top of that, you require a constant monitoring and evaluation that what is the adoption level, what is the need which the solution is addressing. So all these 12 elements are very important when you consider your procurement digitization. So what do you achieve? I mean, after you go through all of this, what do you achieve? A top-notch governance, which can allow you to have superior control on the budget. You have a spend management, which is visible, happening on real time. You have a SOP compliance, superior contract management, and various aspects I've not listed out. I just listed out some bullets in various aspects of the governance. You have a sustainable organization. Since it has a built-in vendor rating mechanism, there is a constant improvement on the vendor performance. There is a constant risk profiling of the vendor which is done. So various supply related risks can be mitigated in time. There's a knowledge redundancy which is getting established, which is where it has helped you to leverage that historical knowledge which you have created when you are designing the future strategies. It establishes end-to-end visibility. So all complete transparency, logs of everything which is happening, central repository of data. It brings about agility. I think we've seen the reduction in the process time. Here I've reflected 60% plus, but over a period of about a year and a half, almost close to 73, 74% process time gets reduced, which would give them more time for their strategic activity. You have, again, instant information to leverage in order to arrive at the right buying strategies. All actions which are desired, you don't have to remember anything. The system can provide you the alerts to do carry out certain tasks based on your business requirements. And you have a kind of a complete turnaround time dashboard. So you can find out that which are the laggards and what is required to be done in order to improvise the agility. The most important part that this system establishes full accountability. You can weed out non-compliant transactions. You can weed out any communications which is where there can be a kind of probable non-appropriate communications between supplier and buyer. You can track user-specific savings which is generated to motivate users who meet certain savings target in order to constantly work with the same objective of the organization to save cost. And this all brings about huge cost reduction. I mean, we've seen it ranging from anywhere from 5% to 17%, depending on what level of inefficiencies in which categories of purchase which you have currently built in, which is not known. It kind of also improves on a buying environment, which becomes more competitive. You can have interesting technology-driven bidding strategy, and you can, to a great extent, eliminate maverick buying. Just quickly, I'll take you through a case study of a fairly large cement company. They had close to about 50 plants, planned cement plant in a remote location. I mean, typically cement plants are located in a godforsaken place. I think very much away from the major cities and closer to the small towns. Cement is an industry which has huge maintenance and repair requirements. So their MRO purchases were significantly large. And MRO purchases are driven by low value and high volume of transactions. So they had practically no control, although it constituted hardly 8% of their total spend. It still amounted to close to about 1,800 crores of spend. They were thinking that there will be a resistance to change because people who are there in this company, which are working remotely from a remote locations, people age group was around 45 to 55. So they say that people are not going to change. It was almost 100,000 plus material code, close to 45,000 plus suppliers, no visibility of vendors' negotiation behavior, tremendous amount of manual intervention, a completely email-driven framework for approval, assessment, evaluation of technical and commercial build. And there's a high dependency on senior people, senior buyers in terms of on their knowledge. They were worried that if these guys leave, what will happen? Huge documentation needs for audit and compliance. And I don't know how much of that would have been helpful in really able to get that compliance standards being met. And there were distributed information, so tremendous amount of coordination which was required between among the stakeholders. And this was a disconnected process from a legacy system. So there was a one more audit point which was there, the data which was created outside the scope of ERP and the data which was punched in the ERP. So there was always a cross-telling need to ensure the right audit compliance. So their objective, what they defined, is that we want a complete transparency in the entire sourcing process. You design a process for us to have the best price discovery. We want insight on how negotiations are happening. We would like to drop our transactional efforts, means all the manual efforts which we are doing to a significant extent. What can you do to prevent maverick buying. How do I bring about further agility into the process? How do I get on a click any information which we desire on any supplier or supplies or an item? How do I ensure timely payments to my suppliers? I think I am taking a lot of time in my invoice processing. How do I bring that satisfaction level in the suppliers? And how do I bring about my compliance to SOP, simplify audit, and establish knowledge redundancy? These are the objectives. So we kind of offered them a range of solutions. We gave reverse auction, which has a variety of strategies built in for price discovery. The sourcing module, which is fully integrated with their ERP and which establishes complete transparency in the decision making process. Downstream project process, which is where the the information on supplies is transparently available across the board, across the stakeholders, information on payments, information on invoice processing. You have looking at the CapEx and services buying, which is driven manually by BOM and various list of service activities, which is what is completely Excel driven and has a serious compliance issues. They wanted to resolve this. They had a customized process of pre inspection before the dispatch through an independent uh, external and internal inspectors. So they wanted to build this customized piece, which was very, very important for managing their back supplies. And they wanted a complete transparency in processing of invoicing, including three-way matching. So this is the scope with which we kind of implemented the solution, which has multiple integration points with their ERP because they wanted to make sure that the ERP and the application data integrity is in totality. So almost there were close to 15 points of integration to ensure full integration from end-to-end process with all the required touch points with the ERP. And the outcome, what did they get at the end of the day? They got the entire process, procurement process digitized. They had the best of the procurement practices, which is where kind of built in into the system. Single point visibility of entire procurement function from anywhere in the world. This led to almost close to about 5.5% savings in their category B and C purchases. The auditors, I think, we found it very easy because they could get access to anything from any a single point for any transactions. They had filters to filter out transaction with almost over 1024 permutation combination. This also led to a significant savings of time. Their current savings is almost close to about 68%. It established complete knowledge redundancy for every buyer's knowledge, every supplier related knowledge, every item related knowledge within the system. It to a great extent mitigate the supply risk because there were alerts which were given by the system to act upon any kind of emergency which were arising. It also improved significantly supplier relations because supplier were feeling that they are getting a fair deal in terms of the buying decision as well as in terms of release of the payment in time. It also improved vendor performance because constant monitoring the system was doing about how vendor is performing on qualitative parameter, on service parameter, on pricing parameter. And this kind of established a more sustainable procurement. The system is accessible 24 by 7 by 365 anytime in the world. So even if you're sitting at the airport, a decision comes for your approval, you're able to see all relevant analytics, all relevant parameters of how this transaction is flown, passed through the workflow, who are the people responsible. Thing you have in mobile applications, you approve a decision to move forward. So there is a real-time actions which started happening insightful actions, I would say, which started happening. A full portability with ERP, so they're not worried. All data points are getting to the relevant points in the ERP. And this kind of very important point, this digital landscape kind of established the landscape for embracing new technology. Like say like Gen AI, it's dependent on data. How do you train your model if you don't have pure data available in volumes? So this is what this organization is able to create to be ready for the future. So how do you make your procurement future ready? I mean, I reflected on various points. Create your digitization roadmap, which I had reflected. Create your analytical layers, which can give you deeper insights. You have to have accountability established. So, which are your accountability point, which you want the system to establish accountability? You need to, once you establish the first three component, the fourth component is that once you have these data, what way you would like to construct your AI model to deliver what insight, what kind of suggestive decisions making capabilities which you want to build in this AI model. At the same time, you want to monitor the ESG compliance of your suppliers too. So what visibility which you are getting there, and how do you manage evolving needs? So what is the cross-functional communication which you are able to establish? So this kind of becomes your landscape, which is future ready. You need to go step by step, and you have to make this procurement function very efficient through going through this path. Now, I am trying to reflect the impact of, I've reflected only few of the elements here. We ourselves are working on close to about 13 different Gen AI projects, but I'm just reflecting some component of this to give a perspective that Gen AI is a game changer. You can look at the platform querying it in a natural language queries. You want to say which decisions which were taken at a higher price than the previous order. What was the volume which I gave in the previous order where I paid a lower price, and what are the volume I gave to this, which is a vendor which was involved in the previous time, and what are the vendor which is current vendor. So these are a simple example which I have given. More complex queries through a natural language can be done on directly on the data, and that is creating on the fly a query, leveraging the power of Gen AI. If the model is aptly trained, you have predictive negotiation behavior. So you have historical pattern where suppliers are negotiating keeping certain buffers. You you're not able to figure out what buffers they are keeping because you're dealing with hundreds and thousands of transactions. Now, if you're looking at this, you want a pattern to be derived, leveraging the power of Gen AI of the supplier's negotiation behavior. Which situation, which is where supplier is giving me a higher discount? It would reflect this is a payment terms which you make it attractive, or this is a volume, you increase that volume if your inventory costs are less than the price discount, I mean, is more than the price discount which you are getting. You look at the AP solution, you want to find out a three-way, four-way matching with including GST. How do you system, which is where multiple supplier put up invoices in multiple format? Now, how do thy system collects all these invoices and in correspond to the right order and right GRN or SRN? How does it process without, to a great extent, I would say, not without, to a great extent without human intervention? And you keep a track of all of this from a single point. How do you bring RPA bots for automating further the processes which are mundane, which doesn't require a routine human intervention. How do you query the entire platform to find out information which is what is currently needed by you? That, okay, I need a supplier is information for the last transaction. I'm just typing like I'm doing a search on the Google search bar. And how do I bring about this entire thing? And this is what is the world is going to be. That's the power of Gen AI. And it's going to be applied across the board in every function. And it's going to leverage whatever the data which has been created to guide you, to automate the process, to give you insight. All of this is going to happen leveraging Gen AI. But if you don't have the data points which are pure and which are significant, where this model can be trained in respect to your organization, then you will not be able to leverage this to agree, because every organization have their own ecosystem, and these models need to be tweaked to make sure that it fits into that ecosystem. So what could be an impact when you go through this? Your transactional from this to it becomes the boardroom impact, which we are talking. It becomes a strategic function. You're just looking at speed, leveraging emails and various other factors. It gets into significance. You create the significance of this function in the boardroom. And from a short to mid-term function, it goes into long-term sustainable function, which can also establish a good sustainability for the organization. Having said that, let me quickly give you a small brief on our organization. I shared that we've been into this space for almost 20 years. Some of the organization have recognized our efforts, what we have carried out. And primarily, we believe in offering solutions, a product. Our product is very simple. And we believe that it has to be customer-centric service. So when you're looking at a change, which needs to be profound and which is where the customers start depending on you, I think your quality standards has to be par excellent. So these are the two factors on which we've been creating our solutions and the services. Some of the people who are behind this, who've been backing this, besides me, I come with experience about 40 years across manufacturing, trading, and of course, since 20 years in IT. Of course, Hussefa has given some background about what I have been doing. Raj comes from Silicon Valley. He's on our advisory board. Raj was an ex-CTO of Sun Microsystem. He was a vice president at Silicon Graphic, and he's also currently on the advisory board of 5 leading AI ML company in Silicon Valley. Ashay is been into the Yahoo India senior engineering team, and then he started his own company in AdTech venture. So he's helping us in design of architecture as well as selection of technology. Nilesh is a gold partner, AWS gold partner. So we are hosted on AWS. So all the security, scalability, all requirement related to AWS is where Nilesh is kind of looking after that. Jay is our chief AI officer. So Jay's got onboarded about 6 months back. So he's leading all our AI initiative. Jay was a ex chief strategy officer at Oracle, and he was also on the advisory board of HP as well as Jasper, which is bought over by Cisco. Arun brings up in the insight on, he was an ex-CTO of Cipla. He brings up the CIO perspective. What could be the expectations of CIO? So that is what something which we try to meet up the requirement. Shekhar is was a managing director of Bayer Crop Science WAPI unit. He's an almost 40 years plus experience of supply chain. He's been a mentor, so he's kind of mentoring our leadership team um, in terms of the management skills which are required. Um, Ravin is he was heading the consulting division of KPMG India, and he's now retired. Most of them, except Asher and Nilesh, most of them are retired and are working with us. Ravind is bringing about the consulting angle uh, to support our customer needs in terms of process improvement, in terms of helping us to build those processes within the system. So these are the people with whom we are moving forward with our journey. Some of the customers whom we have been catering various industry, chemical, Aarti industry, GHCL, steel, Argus Steel, cement, Ultratech Cement, pharmaceutical, Intas, FMCG, Patanjali, again a specialty chemical, Jubilant, and various others. So these are the companies and Media Times of India. These are the companies and many more, which we are kind of managing their entire. They're all in on our system. Our system is known as Vendex. That's the name of our platform. Our organization name is Maven Vista. Having said this, I think I would like to end my presentation, and I would be happy to take on the any QR questions which you may have.
If
If
anyone
anyone,
likes to ask,
hello,
hello, if anyone likes to ask any question, they can put it in the chat box or can directly ask also.
I have a question. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Hello,
Yeah,
I have a question. Am I audible?
yeah, now you're audible.
Okay. I was seeing the last slide. We are talking here about all probably multinationals. Uh, how is this technology? How far away we are from making it affordable? Say sub 500 crore companies or 100 crore companies.
So I think
How
it's a good
far away we
question.
are?
Uh, so I think it's a good question. The complexities involved in terms of a problem for 100 to 500 crores turnover companies compared to 5,000 crore turnover companies are different.
Mm.
So there are simplified versions which are available to meet up the requirement of a smaller company which comes at an affordable price.
What are the investments we are talking about here?
See, in fact, if you're talking about a larger company, the investment could be on a, this is a SaaS model. So this investment could be a one-time investment of close to about 1 to 1.5 CR. And again, there could be a recurring investment of 60 to 70 lakhs.
Last question. How do you think we as chartered accountants can partner with your organization uh, in terms of, you know, uh, do you think any such partnership would be? Uh,
Yeah, I think we would love to explore this because considering the fact that we are dealing with a very sensitive business function. And
True.
the solution which we are offering, which kind of establishes complete transparency in the function as well as weeding out the non-compliance which is there. So I think it would be great when we are looking at, of course, I would not suggest to go to a companies which are less than 100 crores, considering there are two factors in India which is very prominently present. These are mostly owner-driven company, and I think there is, I know everything is the kind of, I'm the one who's looking after the procurement, and nothing is going to go wrong. But procurement is a science unless that realization sets in. it will be very difficult for get the adoption done, even to sell the concept. So I think one has to look at that which is the company which is looking for transformation. It's also important to find out the owner's vision. If one is able to identify the founder who is wanting to change, who believes that decentralization with the desired control can significantly improve the efficiency. And these are all measurable parameters. This is not something which is that you would be able to see that compared to last year, what is the amount of savings which you have generated additional on the platform. When you're expanding your requirement, when you're expanding your business, are you able to manage the same business with less number of people and it's more in a more compliant manner? Are you able to have, see, there is a concern, which is what is always setting in, that am I paying the right price? This is a question which every single management would have it. Now, it's a question of having the visibility that what I am seeing as an efforts and data points in order to be closer to the right price. There is never like a right price. So to answer your question, yes, there is a possibility of looking at companies which are 100 to 500 crores. We have customers also which are using different set of services. These services ranges in the cost range of 2 lakhs to 10 lakhs rupees. Am I answering your question?
Uh, got an idea. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Hello?
I think I've got some network issue over here. Sorry.
So Mr. Vijay Sachdeva, I think he wants to ask some question. Yeah, Vijay. No, I think you're on mute. You're on mute, Vijay. Vijay, you'll be required to unmute.
Good evening, Mr. Shah.
Good evening.
First of all, compliments for a very meaningful and tangible conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pleasure. So, Mr. Shah, just wanted to understand that is the proposed solution compatible for organizations which have operations in multiple countries and also multiple ERPs, with the complexity of some of the ERPs only having a local language, say a Portuguese or a Turkish or Uzbekistan and so on. So multiple ERPs, multiple geographies, and complexities of language, where even the contracts or purchase orders or the quotations will be in multiple languages.
So your answer, your first question, multiple countries, yes. This is country agnostic solution. Two, multiple ERP, yes, because this is an ERP neutral solution. Three, multiple languages, partially yes and partially no. The reason being here that we have built in a Google Translator for all of our RFP code form. So data entry happens in English, but understanding of the labels gets converted into the language of choice with whatever limitations which Google Translator has.
Sure, because we are a large corporation and the number of transactions will be huge. I'm talking about Indorama Corporation and having operations in Uzbekistan, Turkey, Brazil. I'm still not talking about Africa or Indonesia, where still it is blend of the local language and English. but some of the countries are too agnostic to local languages. Documents, even the ERPs are configured for local languages. But good to hear that.
See, I think with the LLM model maturing, maybe in the future, there could be a solution.
Sure. And second and last question was that on, I think one of your initial slides, you mentioned about vendor rating, vendor risk analysis. So does your system talk to the ERP on some of the embedded controls? For example, who can change the vendor master, or say a payment control for a vendor? So does your system would embed the internal controls or the system controls which are linked, or it
So,
will be only on the procurement synergies?
yeah, so I think to address your question, the companies which, the case study which I reflected, that company had the vendor and item code activation and deactivation control in the ERP for each of the plant. So they are having more than 50 plants. So they were kind of activating You're again on mute, Vijay.
Yeah, Mr. Shah.
Yeah. So these controls are replicated in our system. So we will have to study what controls which you want it to be replicated, because it's all triggers and triggers based on which you kind of initiate the actions within the system, within the applications, to ensure that whether this can be controlled or it cannot be controlled. I mean, I think that's where I said it. One has to study that to answer your question clearly.
Absolutely. No, I completely appreciate, because the challenges of multiple, so we are into multiple sectors. We are into petrochemicals, fertilizers, and textiles, multiple geographies. So this would be a top line of around 7.4 billion US dollars. So around 70,000 plus CR INR. So the complexity challenges go on a completely different tangent.
Right. I do understand. In
Sure.
fact, see, when you're looking, but still, I think from the need perspective, the need still exists. So I think it would be apt for you to probably think through how these needs can be addressed, because um, the more complex situations requires probably the higher is the need, because there are more loose points which are there existing in a more complex situation.
Absolutely.
So ideally, what we are typically suggesting that start small. Don't think about the whole picture at once. You need to run a pilot. Pick up one business or one operations. Start with that. See the success there. You will also build up a lot of understanding about what is needed, how it is implemented, what is the benefit it is translating. But if you don't start the journey, you would not get into any experience thinking about the complexity, the mammoth complexity. So you will have to start the journey somewhere.
No, absolutely. So that is already started. The first step is we are standardizing the item codes and so on. So already Bain has done a study. So we're taking 6 months to streamline so that all the data becomes ready to be monitored. So
Okay.
that work is already started. The next step is looking for solutions which will come approximately by July or so. So we had this session today, and I thought to bounce these points to you.
Perfect. So,
Absolutely. Pleasure. Thank you.
Vinas, in case if you have any other questions, you can just share it on my email. It's Suhrid at mavenvista.com.
Absolutely. I'll route it through Josefa at the
Yeah,
right time. Definitely we'll take it forward.
sure.
Sure. Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
talking to you.
See.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful session. I would like to call Mr. Ashish Karkhanes, who will be giving the vote of thanks for you. Ashish, sir, you can take over the call.
Good evening, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes.
So, a very good evening to everybody, and I think we have had a excellent session with Suhrid sir, taking us through the gamut of the procurement process and the digitalization of that. I think we have also had an excellent question and answer session going into the last part where there are some very good questions asked and equally detailed answers given by Suhrid sir on that. Today's presentation and probably one of the different Excellencia series where we are looking into an operations process. Suhrid sir has taken us in a brief and succinct manner the entire supply chain management process, the challenges involved, and the adverse impacts which could be have had on the system. He has also very nicely given the six building blocks of the process digitization. I think the key words here to take are the ethics and the ESG compliance, because ESG is such a key word going into each and every process that ESG compliance is something that now everybody of us is looking forward to. Also, the agility of digitization is very important because it reduces the efforts and makes it more real time. The turnaround is faster. The key elements which he has provided, like data analytics, stakeholders buy-ins, change management, scalability, these are all the need of the hour. I think the key elements contribute a lot towards the acceptance of this process digitization and the what things it is going to achieve, mainly being sustainability, governance in practical sense, the transparency, and most importantly, the keyword for every corporate, which is the cost reduction. As he has said, that it may range from 5 to 17%. I think that would be something that probably every corporate would be really interested in. He has also touched upon what kind of AI would impact the digital process going forward for procurement, like semantic search, RPA bots would actually reduce human intervention for mundane tasks. The predictive negotiation behavior, I think, which again is going to impact costs very much going into the future. And of course, audit and compliance, which is probably a matter of concern and quality for all the stakeholders involved. I think whatever transition which is happening from a transaction based to a strategy based initiative for the boardroom, for the management, and also for the stakeholders is something probably which is a major takeaway from today's presentation given by Surit sir. I would really like to thank him for this presentation. I would like to request all of you to carry this vote of thanks with a round of applause for Surit sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much
much
for
for
attending
attending
this
this
presentation
presentation
and
and
looking
looking
forward
forward
to
to
see
see
you
you
in
in
the
the
next
next
presentation
presentation
as
as
well.
well.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much.